Welcome back to the channel. So yes, it's true, I have not covered yet on the channel how to make a sweet soufflé, and good news, it is coming. The only thing, before you can make a soufflé, there is one little skill that you need to master, and this is how to make a biscuit à la cuillère, which is called the lady fingers biscuit. The true version of the soufflé, the liquor soufflé, like the soufflé au grand marnier, is made actually with pieces of biscuit inside the soufflé. This is not something you're going to see very often because people are a bit lazy, you see, they kind of skip that part. But we have to do things properly. So in this episode, we're going to learn how to make the biscuit à la cuillère, aka the lady fingers. This is one of the staple biscuits you need anyway for your patisserie. You're going to make charlotte, you're going to make bavarois, you can make tiramisu, you can use it for trifle and other French desserts. Very simple to make, but it is really a skill you need to have under your belt. So like the last time with the puff pastry and the pithivier, we're going to learn how to make the biscuit first, okay, this week. Next week, the special soufflé au grand marnier, okay? But today, let's start with the biscuit. So here we are. So very briefly, when we talk about the biscuit à la cuillère, it's a kind of a sponge kind of biscuit in English. It's called like the sponge, sometimes fingers or whatever. And you can use it in a lot of preparation. And I really like to bring you all the time something that is easy to make, but also that's got a lot of value, meaning that you're going to be able to use it in all kinds of scenarios. Now for today, we're going to use a recipe that is actually a school recipe from a culinary school, like all the culinary school in France. When you start and doing the patisserie kind of course, which is take 1 or 2 years, you're going to learn the basics with this kind of easy measurement. 4 eggs, we're going to separate the eggs, egg yolks, eggs white. We're going to have some flour, some white sugar and confectionery sugar on here. That's all you're going to need, okay? You're going to find in the video description all of the details for the cookware. I'm going to use a KitchenAid here. You can do it by hand. We're going to use a baking sheet, some little parchment paper and a piping bag, and that's about it. So here we are. I've separated the white from the yolks, and one of the things you need to know is that when you make a meringue, and this is the case here, we're going to have to beat the egg white. Temperature is an issue. Make sure your eggs are room temperature. Actually, when you make a meringue, and meringue doesn't like cold, so try to have your bowl room temperature, have the egg white at room temperature. I've really unearthed a recipe here that's the easiest possible. Okay, there's different style, but this is really the easiest there is. So what we're going to do here, we're going to add all of the egg whites, a little bit of sugar to start with, a tiny bit, and we're going to start on slow speed to beat the egg whites. All right, so after a few minutes, basically I'm going to crank up the speed, and the reason we're doing this here, not too fast, is to allow for the sugar to melt. If you go too fast and you whip too fast, it's going to foam very quickly, and your sugar, that is kind of this granulated type of sugar, is not going to be dissolved into your meringue. This is why you kind of take it easy. And bit by bit, as it starts to foam, you add more sugar and more sugar. That's the whole thing. Okay, so we've added a little bit of sugar to start with. I've added a bit more. I've waited 1 or 2 minutes to really get a nice kind of foamy consistency. And now, very slowly, I'm going to add the rest of my sugar. And that's it. It's all in. So I'm going to continue for a minute, and at the end, I'm going to turn up the speed to really get that meringue, you know, nice and tight. All right, so after a minute or two, just to show you, I'm going to take a little bit of the white here. This is the kind of consistency. You see it sticks on my spatula here, it makes these little peaks. So from here, just a very brief, high speed, nothing more than a minute, just to make them tight. And I think even 1 minute is a bit much, so like maybe 30 seconds or something. All right, hold on. Okay, so I've stopped the machine. I just want to show you very quickly. This is what I've got, and you've got a nice, stiff and shiny meringue. Now the trick we're going to do now, this is the modern way of doing things, okay, is how you incorporate the egg. So what you're going to do, you're going to put this back in. We're going to take the egg yolks and we're going to beat them first and put them straight in there. So what do I mean exactly? egg yolks, you're gonna break them, and you're gonna beat them to an omelette. And instead of using a rubber spatula to incorporate, a modern method that is being used, it was actually to put this back on low speed, okay, and put all the eggs at once. And very, very briefly, you're gonna incorporate everything. 10 seconds usually, maximum, we're done. I'm gonna finish by hand. Now look at that. You see that technique, what I like, is that instead of having to bother to really do that whole folding, you basically start the folding with the machine and the rest happens by hand. So you can try to take the bottom, make sure there's no egg yolk sitting on the side or in the middle, but it works really, really well. So when you're here, okay, you've got your base mix, we're now gonna add the flour. The flour is the last step you're gonna do. So all what you need to do is to take some of the flour, a quarter or half, and you're gonna pass it through a sieve like this, and you're gonna do the folding. So basically what you're doing, you're just incorporating the flour bit by bit into the mixture. That's all it is, okay? And that happens by hand. So you're gonna be folding nicely, making sure you get all of the flour on the side, in the middle, you know that technique, and you go from the center, you put it back there, and you continue. So basically when the first amount is gone, you take more flour, you sieve over again, and you repeat the process until all the flour is gone. Okay, last fold, and as you can see here, I am done. This is the mixture, this is the consistency, nice and fluffy. What I'm gonna do now is put this into a piping bag. All right, so I've put here my my parchment paper, baking paper. I put a bit of dough under there to stick it down. And it has to be about 10 centimeters in length. So I'm back again with my tape measure. And what I'm doing always with this is trying to, you get one, you try to get the size you want, okay? And then based on that one, you're gonna leave some space and then you're gonna repeat. And they don't have to be like, you know, picture perfect or anything like this. It's pretty forgiving, it's not difficult. And trust me, these biscuits, they're lovely to eat on their own. All right, so here we are. And if you're not careful with the piping, this is what can happen. If you see what I've got here, they're different. See, this one is narrow, some are not straight, etc. And this is where you're gonna have to be careful if you do certain cakes to apply the same amount of pressure as you go as you're piping, not kind of press and stop and press and stop. It's like you take a position, you press, always the same. And this is something you can get with experience. But even if you do it like this very fast without thinking, this is what you get, all right? And it's fine. Or what we're gonna do now is sprinkle some of this confectionery sugar, icing sugar. Again here, a very simple process. I'm gonna take my sugar and we're gonna be very generous and we're gonna go tuck, 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 you know, and we're putting a nice coating of sugar. I'm gonna preheat my oven here at 180 degrees Celsius, okay? And while it's heating up, we're gonna leave these like this to absorb the sugar and then add a second coating. Here we are, so my oven is ready and I like to bring the attention to this one here. Look at the sugar. It's almost all gone and it starts to disappear everywhere. So just before we're gonna put this in the oven, I'm gonna repeat and put the rest of my sugar on top of each of the biscuits. And as soon as that's done, that goes straight into the oven, 12 to 15 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. I'll put the equivalent Fahrenheit on the screen. We want them just a little bit colored at the top, but not much at all. And there they are, middle rack. I'm using a fan forced oven. Okay, 15 minutes, let's go. And here we are. Now, would you look at this? This is the result of cooking cookies or biscuits in a brand new oven that I've got. No need to brag, but I do, because I'm so happy with that thing. It works really well. If you have a good oven, 180 degrees I thought for myself is great for the first 5 minutes, but then I will reduce the temperature to 170, even 160 Celsius. I'll put the equivalent Fahrenheit to avoid too much coloring. But look at these things. They're feather lights, and this is how it looks under. And look how soft. You got to love this baking stuff. It's beautiful. Anyway, once they're here, don't eat them straight away. We're going to put them here on a cooling rack. So a cooling rack are a great little tool to have because otherwise it might get soggy. So you put these things on the cooling rack. Okay? And here we are. So these are the biscuits à la cuillère. And honestly, do not go and buy these things in the supermarket because they are so easy to make and they're also so good to eat. You can keep these once they're made in a container like a metal box with a lining of parchment paper or baking paper for up to 2 weeks maximum. Let's open one because of course we can't wait. I'm sure you want to see, but I want to see as well. So it is basically a sponge-like cake. It's yellow inside. It's got that nice fluffy texture. And I think these are delicioso. Oh. You know what? For an instant, I was brought back to childhood. I used to eat these by the bucket. I remember I was going through cupboards and stuff. I was like, oh, where are they? What? Nice one more. That's good, huh? Very, very good. Okay. Okay, let's finish with the tasting. Now, what's important about this is that you're going to be needing those next week when we're going to be making our authentic sweet soufflé flavored with Grand Marnier, which is the orange liquor. You're also going to be needing this if you want to make the famous charlotte, charlotte au chocolat, charlotte aux poires, charlotte aux fraises. Like I said, the English trifle, little pieces of cake like this. You can make discs as well, shapes of that you want, and use this as a base for a cake. There's plenty of usage for that thing. And this is considered a very good technique in the world of patisserie that you have to master, and it is even during the exams. So trust me, it's not for the fun we're doing this, it is a useful skill to learn, okay? But that completes the video for this week, guys. Please join me, of course, next week for the big one. We're gonna make the soufflé, the savory one, and I'm gonna give you all the information, all the tricks to make sure you can wow your guest with a superb dessert. That's it for me. I'll leave you with that beautiful picture on the screen. I'll see you next time for the big soufflé au Grand Marnier. Take care, bye-bye.